Welcome back to another edition of the Gabagools podcast. I'm your host, Jeff. I believe it's 30, episode 35. So trying to think of a good number for 35, but either way, with me and my co-host, Dan. How we feeling?
Well, we're not feeling 35, thank God, but we're feeling
Hey,
good.
getting kind of close to that number here.
Yeah, we both are. Uh, you know, it's one of those days where you wake up and you're like, man, it's just great to be alive. It's 75 degrees
Oh
outside in October. Took the pooch for a W as we do on Mondays, and you know we're getting to that time of the year where you got to start bundling up. You got to start putting the sweatshirts on and the the long pants and doing all that. I don't know if you're a glove or a winter hat guy. Sometimes
yeah.
you got to even
Oh
throw
yeah.
a scarf on. It gets
100%.
it's no
I'm
bueno,
I'm
but
all
it's
for that.
beautiful out there, though. Yeah, it's when you get a day like this in October 21st, wherever we are. I mean, you got to just throw a deuces up to the man upstairs. Hey, gracias.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm it's so super funny because when I was younger I used to hate like wearing a jacket or wearing like a hat and stuff or but now I don't know if it's because I travel downtown for work or what, but I definitely like I will wear a scarf because you know what? I like being warm now. It is not fun being cold. Like don't like it takes a lot for me to get cold, but still it's like I don't want to be like chilly on my walk to work. Like it's not fun. I've done that one too many times.
And when you're younger, you see someone wearing a scarf, and you're like, "Look at this loser! Look at this, jelly over here." But then you get a little older, and you're like, "Hey, the
It's a
scarf's a good
stylish.
look. It keeps the neck warm.
Yeah.
It's much more important than you'd think."
Yeah, just like the people who like remember when we're well, maybe this is an ozone change too, but like the people who never wore sunscreen too.
Those people are they're out there.
Imagine thinking you're stronger than the sun.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Ponder that for a minute.
people like you and I, we've known that we're not stronger than the
Oh.
sun for quite a while. But yeah, those people that think, hey, man, we can take on the sun, I mean, more power
Little
to you.
yeah, little history lesson. Do you remember when we were in the Bahamas and we both got sunburned?
Well, this is,
We're going back. Like if you have so I remember specifically because we were at the resort and you were already sunburned, and I'm like, oh, I'll be fine, whatever. And I don't remember what happened, but I just remember not putting enough sunscreen on and just being fried the rest of the trip. And I think you finally bounced back, and then it was like then you got a little sunburned, but then I think I cut my foot on one of those like rock walls, like by the
uh,
pool.
you know, the worst. Sometimes you get real bad sunburn, and when you see someone that looks red like a lobster, you're like, man, you could probably fry an egg on that skin.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we both were too. I remember, and it was just because that was probably the worst sunburn I ever had. That's when we were like peeling, legit, like just like we were like reptiles, just like shedding our skin.
And I like to look at reptiles. I think they're kind of cool. Some of them wouldn't have one as a pet. Not my style, but you don't want reptile skin. I'll be the first one to say, you got to lotion up. You want soft, silky skin. You don't want the reptile stuff.
Yeah, face lotion, all that stuff. You got to take care of your skin. You only got one of it. Sometimes it regrows though. But anyway, enough of the little history lessons and little talks here. Let's just jump right into sports. Let's hit us with Dan's Week 7 in review. We should get a little soundbite
We
for it.
should get some tunes. Yeah. Okay. As we do every the last couple weeks, I should say, we started from the first game of the week. So we start on Thursday night, which was Broncos and the Saints. So here we go. Broncos do all the bucking and all the running as they scurry past Nolans, 33-10. May looks good, but Jaguars too hungry proved to be too Bigsby for Pats. I like that
Yeah.
one. This is the Hoff proclaimed best game of the week. Lions hand the Vikings first L of the season. Jake says he won't be residing at the Bates Motel anymore. 31-29. Bills trample Titans. Rudolph's nose was in fact not so bright. 34-10. I like that one too.
Getting
Colts,
best.
yeah, Colts continue to find a way to win 16-10 over Miami. Seahawks exclaim, they're the better bird with a statement game on the road. Say, you like that? You like that? 34-14. Seattle over the Falcons. Packers eat just enough cheese to deliver second L to Texans 24-22. Joe Burr throws 2 TDs to top disastrous Browns 21-14. Eagles soar into the night to the tune of Hotel California 28-3. Minshew's 3 picks. Too much for Raiders to overcome 2015 Rams. Commanders stifle Panthers 47. Not much to say on that one. Purdy ain't too purdy now. Chiefs seal deal late. Stay undefeated at 6-0, 28-18. Chiefs. Russell's dangerous sandwich. Too lethal. What does it say? Too lethal for past his prime Rodgers. I knew you'd like that. 37-15. And I think that is it. I think we have the 2 games on later. We got
Yeah, we do.
Baltimore at the Bucks, which, man, that could be a whale of a game. That could be the best game of the week. And then
I think so.
Chargers at the Cards. I'll throw it over
Yep.
to you.
All right. Obviously, we have to jump in with the Jets, 2-5. You go out and you trade for Devonte Adams earlier in this week, and it was kind of funny because it was right after the Monday night, and we were kind of talking like, okay, you know, they lose tonight, they probably don't trade for Adams. Come the next morning after the Jets lose to the Bills, Jets announce, hey, we're getting Devonte Adams. Cool. All right. Optimism. We're talking positivity here.
Yeah.
And there wasn't the only trade. Amari Cooper went to the Bills literally later that afternoon. So kind of interesting right there that they both added wide receivers that they desperately needed. But back onto the Jets, when you break down last night's game, you played a half of football where it was like, okay, we're just about there. Like we're making some strides, but it was overall still sloppy. And then Rodgers throws, I think, that second pick that got taken back all the way to the 1. That might have been in the third quarter, but either way, equally bad. And that's when, in my opinion, the game just completely changed. And they ended up just getting slaughtered 37-15. And they had a lead at halftime. That was the sad part. They had that game in hand. Brees Hall was catching passes nonstop. I think that was just their game plan was, hey, we're just going to pepper Brees Hall and take what we can get, which was kind of surprising given that I don't know any of the other safeties or DBs for Pittsburgh, but Joey Porter Jr. does lock down receivers pretty well. So, you can eliminate one of the receivers, but you have Garrett Wilson in the slot. You have Mike Williams still on the team. And then you also have, obviously you have Tay, but Alan Lazard. So there was no reason that they should have gotten their asses kicked as bad as they did. And, you mentioned in your little blurb here too that Rodgers looked old, and we're running out of people to blame here. It's like you go look at it. It's like last week they lost because Mike Williams ran the wrong route. Rodgers called him out. Saleh got fired the week before. How many more excuses do we have before we start putting it on Rodgers?
Yeah, it's a fair point. And, just to look at the other side of it, they play Pittsburgh, who for the first time this season, we're in week 6, week 7, and you start Russell Wilson for the first week. Justin Fields has looked solid. Now, I know he's had a couple games recently where through the air he didn't do, a ton, and they haven't asked him to do a ton, and he's done more than enough, and they've won games. I was a little surprised because I think that, Pittsburgh's been a pretty solid team with Fields. You throw Russell out there, Russell looked pretty solid.
Yeah, he did. He really did. And I'll just jump in real quick
No, go ahead.
too. The Jets' defense was decimated in their secondary. They went into the game without DJ Reed and Michael Carter the second. he was out as well. So that's the two of your three lockdown corners were out of the game. So should have been able to pass all over him. And at one point, I think Sauce Gardner got hurt too. So I mean, he's back. He was back out there, but but back to you.
No, I mean for him to play his first game this season as a Steeler, it past a few games into the season, for someone like him coming off of the last couple of years of his career, that's one of the better games he's had. And
It really is.
it's encouraging to see if you're a Steelers fan, because now you say, okay, well, Russell looks good. You have to assume he's going to be the starter not only next week, but if he keeps playing this way, yeah, the rest of the season. And if something happens to him, Fields has looked pretty decent as a guy that you could use off the bench. So with Pittsburgh's defense, with one of the best head coaches in the NFL and Mike Tomlin, they just know how to win games. And
Yep.
now you've got it looks like two viable quarterbacks that they could use. And they haven't had that for a few years, obviously, with, ever since Big Ben. And I mean, Big Ben's last year or two weren't great either. So it's been a
No.
couple years, but, good for Russ. He looked good. I've been a fan of his for a while. And that game surprised me a little bit. I didn't really know what to think with some of the changes the Jets had made, and then obviously with the Steelers running Russ out there. That was an interesting game to circle to say, okay, whoever comes out of this game is looking really good moving forward, and whoever doesn't could be trending in the wrong direction. Like you said, the Jets now are 2-5. So what do you
Dug
do?
themselves up. Yeah, you're sitting at third place in the really bad AFC East. Like there's no denying it. The Dolphins without Tua are horrendous. The Patriots look a little bit better with Drake May, but they're still a couple
Yeah,
of years being complete.
easily.
But I mean, they have a QB now. They have a young QB who looks and he slings it pretty well. Um, that's the problem. Is like, okay, we go out, we get Devontae Adams. You have Rodgers. They need to produce. I don't know why none of these stars are all aligning. I don't know. I mean, we could blame the defense for giving up as many points as they did. I mean, they were on the field for a long time. But I mean, the secondary got shredded. And at that point, Pittsburgh doesn't have you would think the way that Russ was passing that they had this elite, receiving game. They don't. It's George Pickens and pretty much Fryermuth. And that's even pushing, a lot of eggs in that basket. But, yeah, on the Jets front, not looking good. Like I said, sitting at 2-5, and it can only go up from here. I mean, I guess. I mean, no. I think the funny thing is too is that you go into it and you say, okay, was Rodgers hurt? Is that why the Jets are 2-5? He has similar stats over the last couple of years as Zach Wilson. They both had 7 interceptions, so far, and there was a couple of them last night. One was a bad throw, and one bounced right off Garrett Wilson's hands and right into the defender, and that one went almost the entire distance. Not much you could do. Got to catch the ball. Hopefully they get better, but they're
You got to
flat.
catch it. You got to catch it when it hits you in the hands. And I don't know what Devontae did with his debut. Probably not a whole lot, but obviously, you can sit there and say, okay, it was his first week as a Jet. He has got to learn the offense a little bit. Obviously, him and Rodgers have a rapport, but
Yeah.
so you can use that excuse. But you're right. Like at some point of the season, you can't keep making excuses. You've got the extra game you got 17 games now, 2-5. Is it possible for them to turn it around? I mean, crazier things have happened, but
The
yeah,
schedule's favorable for it. They do play a favorable schedule coming up. I mean, they have a get right back on track game with New England coming up on Sunday. You go out, you beat New England in New England. You can have a shot now. Like, continue building upon that. But I mean, you're talking about almost two different teams now. You saw that team on Thursday night absolutely destroy the Patriots, and since then, teams looked awful. So I think that's enough talking about the Jets. We'll bore people a little less, but let's move on to the Thursday night game that you mentioned. That was an ass kicking, and honestly, I love that there's football on Thursdays. Don't get me wrong, but they are some horrific games. It's honestly brutal to watch. I've come to, uh, you know, after thinking about it for so long, I'm just like, these games are awful. I mean, we had Spencer Rattler versus Bo Nix, and Bo Nix looked okay, but it was the Javante Williams show. He came out and
yeah,
really looked electric, which good for him. He came off that ACL, and people were talking about him not even being on the team.
yeah. He got in the end zone, I think, twice. He had a big game. Good to see for him. Sean Payton goes to Denver. He comes out of retirement, if you will. I think he was doing some analyzing or commentating, whatever you want to call it. But he's regarded as this great head coach, and he goes to Denver. Denver is not a bad team. I think they're 4-3. They have a winning record with a rookie quarterback who has shown a few things this year. I think he threw for 100 something yards, and I think he added like 70 or 80 yards on the ground. So
Yeah,
overall, wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a real impressive game from him,
no,
but I think you've seen some things from him in a few weeks where he seems to be a smart quarterback. He's not making a ton of mistakes, which is something that Sean Payton's obviously not going to want you to do.
right.
Um, he Sean Payton's a guy who just wants to win. 4-3 with a rookie quarterback. I expect. I don't know what their future looks like, but that's not bad. I didn't know what to think with them going into the season. I know they had your buddy Zach Wilson, who's like I think the third stringer, and they've got Jarrett Stidham, who is on record as saying he thinks he should be a starter in this league. Okay, Jarrett.
Yeah,
But Denver's not a bad team. The Saints, I didn't think they would be that great this year. They won a few games
no.
early, and then Carr gets hurt, and now you've got Rattler in there who's got to play. I think they already said he might be playing next week. They're not sure on Carr's situation.
Yeah, he's Carr's out for four at weeks at least, and honestly, it
Oh
could
yeah,
if they keep losing, they're just going to keep him on the bench anyway and see what they have in Rattler and see if he
sure.
makes that progression. They are playing I think without Chris Olave as well, so it's tough. I mean, it's tough for a rookie, QB to go in there and just get throttled like he is, but that's part of this league.
Yeah, and I don't think he looked great, but I don't know if he looked that. I mean, they only scored 10
He had a
points,
couple
but
bad turnovers.
did he? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I mean, rookie mistakes, right?
yep, exactly. Um, Jumping into that London game with New England at Jacksonville. Honestly, Jacksonville was playing for their lives at this one. Doug Peterson was coaching for his career. I don't know how
Yeah.
many more chances he'll get after this Jacksonville job when they fire him. But they came out, played well, 32-16. Jacksonville just kicked ass. Tank Bigsby ran all over New England, but New England kind of is just a terrible team. Not a whole lot to say other than Drake May looks good, 276 yards passing. Can't ask much more of a rookie QB. Defense is poor. And I did have to laugh, though. I saw that Jared Mayo called his team soft. And now Belichick, they commented on it already. And he's like, well, I wouldn't call the defense soft. They were a top 5 defense last year. It's like, well, I don't know.
You know what? I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it. I like for Jacksonville's sake. I like ETN. I've liked him since college. I like Bigsby a lot though too, and I think
Yeah,
they have. I mean, you know what? He's more of a when he gets enough carries, he's a more physical back. He's able to. It seems to me that he has longer runs. I like ETN a lot, but maybe it's the situation. Maybe I don't know. He was hurt this week. ETN probably would have had a big week if he was healthy, but I like
probably.
Bigsby. I like that he was able to, take the carries and have a big game. And Drake May, you know what? He had his debut, I think, last week. Didn't look bad, and then this week, I think, improved on that and threw for 270 something, I think, or I don't know if he had a pick. So you know what? He you said this I think last week with his debut. He's done a decent amount so far in 2 weeks with very little over there. Patriots have
Yeah.
very little on offense, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean they can only go up from here. We kind of knew that it was gonna be a rough year, but happy for Drake May that he's not just getting Spencer Rattler out there. Honestly,
Yeah.
um, jumping into the next game that I just have on my list. I know it was a little bit later, but Seattle at Atlanta. Once again, another blowout. Seattle's defense just was swarming over Kirk Cousins. Bijan looked good again, for those fantasy owners. And also, let me rewind a little bit too. Tank Bigsby was always a guy too during the dynasty rookie drafts that people were looking. They were kind of already pushing the issue that he could overtake, Etienne, but we'll see. We'll see what it ends up becoming if it's more of a dual backfield, kind of a Montgomery Gibbs situation. But jumping back over to Atlanta, where Bijan looked good. I mean, most of the stats, Atlanta was in favor of. Their stars actually played well. Pitts is actually turning around, finally getting all those receptions. Bijan ran for 103. And Kirk, I mean, he was Kirk, obviously, that game. You got throttled, but, uh, you know, I think we should give a lot of credit to the coaching staff with Seattle. With Mike, I think it's Mike McDonald from that. He was the Ravens defensive coordinator, and just what he turned around. I mean, Pete Carroll kind of aged out with that team, and it was very evident. But what Ken Walker is able to do too is they're just featuring him, and he's blown up right before our eyes.
He's a monster. I have Charby in one or two of my leagues, and I think Charbonnet is another guy. We've just mentioned a couple, tandems. I think Charby, if he gets a chance, he's already shown that he can put up numbers too. The problem for him, obviously, is he has a easily top 10, if not closer to top five, when healthy. Ken Walker is pardon my French, this is going to be the first F bomb tally we have today. Well, you actually just dropped the first one. This will be the second one. He's on fucking believable. As long as he's
Yeah,
on the field, I mean, that dude's unreal. I mean, I love Charbonnet because I've got him, but
yeah.
I wish I had Walker. He's on fucking real.
Yeah, man, he's good. Electric when he gets the ball, and I'm happy he's kind of staying healthy for once too. But yeah, that's Seattle. They're winning still. I
They're a
mean
good team.
that they're a good team, and that division's up for grabs. If they can, squeak one out against 49ers, I think they have a real shot. Um, Next game, Tennessee at Buffalo. Buffalo is obviously circling the wagons. 34-10. Josh Allen looked like Josh Allen again,
Yeah.
323 yards. Keon Coleman had his breakout game this week, and then obviously you had Amari Cooper. Come in and get that touchdown as well. He didn't. There was a couple. I think that's the play that he scored the touchdown on. He didn't even know the play. He looked over at Keon Coleman and he was like, "Just run straight."
You got to love that when the rookie's telling you what to do.
Right. But I mean, Josh Allen is just too much, and once again, that just kills the Jets' chances at the division currently, just because Buffalo keeps winning. But any other notes on Buffalo? I mean,
Oh,
Tennessee, I don't have a whole lot. I mean,
yeah.
Mason Rudolph was a QB, so that's another team that new coach. Will Levis is hurt, so you don't really know what you have in him. He's had a lot of embarrassing plays like week after week, but you can only go up from here, I guess.
Well, you'd hope you can only go up from there, but I don't know if there's much room to really go up with Levis and Mason Rudolph. I mean, it's no offense to those two, but maybe Levis gets a little better. Mason Rudolph is, and he's just not the. I wouldn't have the guy as my third stringer. No offense to Mason. I hope he's not listening, but if he is, you suck, man.
Yeah, I always have fond memories of that Thursday night game where I think it was a Thursday night game where he
When
jumped
Miles
at.
Garrett, yeah, with the helmet,
Yeah,
yeah. I just remember the meme of his head being like caved in from that
yeah,
from the helmet.
yeah.
I thought we were witnessing a death on the field. I mean, I've never seen somebody take their helmet off, and not only anybody. I mean, no homo. All right, I have to preface that. I'm a straight male. Miles Garrett, the guy doesn't have an ounce of body fat. This dude, that's not the guy you want to mess with. I'm sorry.
Oh,
What do
that's
you?
fine. Yeah,
No, he's a scary individual. I mean, that he's one of the bigger guys in the NFL. You want to mess with that guy? Mason must have a screw loose, or he just must be the dumbest sob in the
I'm,
league.
yeah. I mean,
You're gonna
I
pick a
get the
fight
whole.
with Miles Garrett?
I wouldn't personally, but I mean, I guess if you're going to go after one of the biggest guys in the league, the guy to do it. And he didn't really go
Shit.
after him. That was the thing is he was just talking shit to him, and God knows what he actually said.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
But
said anything to Miles. I would have said, "All right, Miles, have a good game."
yeah, yeah, like Burrow. Did you see that clip of Burrow? He said like, "Oh, like glad we didn't get to talk much today." And he like tapped him on the like chest, and Garrett and him were going back and forth. So it's good to know that it's not like one of those situations where I hate some of those interviews where it's like I hate the QB, I hate the QB. So
Yeah, we could
um,
be friends.
yeah, everyone should be friends here. The fun league. That's what we'll start calling
The Fun League. I like that. The National Fun League.
it. Keep the initials at least.
There you go.
Next game, Cincinnati at Cleveland. As we were just mentioning it, really boring game.
Yeah.
Burrow finally got his revenge against Cleveland. He has had a terrible record against them. Um, you know, Deshaun Watson got hurt. He is done for the rest of the season. Torn Achilles. You know, hate to say, never see you again. Hopefully, not really hate to say it. I'm happy to say it. That's a guy that you kind of root for an injury for. He's just a piece of shit. Um,
I don't
but
know what you do with Cleveland. We could have an entire podcast on what the hell Cleveland was thinking, paying him all that money. And again, I've been on. I don't know what happened to the guy. A couple of years ago, when he was on the Texans, he was great. Then he had to sit out for 2 years. Maybe it was the inactivity. Maybe it was, everybody hates him, and maybe it's that. But you'd think the ability to play a game that you could play growing up as a kid. I know we have the athletes are better, they're bigger, stronger, faster in the NFL. I get all that, but you mean to tell me he's that bad now? I still can't believe he's that bad. I know I think he had a shoulder injury last year or 2 years ago or something,
shoulder,
and
foot.
so maybe he's banged up and he's just not the same guy as he was. But I mean, how did he go from being a guy who was way up here to, I mean, he's like, I've never seen a fall like this. I don't think I have. It's unbelievable.
I think that's what a lot of people are saying too about how like just how do you fall off that bad. I mean, it was he didn't want to play for the Texans, um, and I think when they wanted him to come back, he just sat out. And then after that, all the allegations came out. And then he was out another year because they suspended him. But yeah, hate to see you go. Not really. Yeah, back to Burrow. Burrow got another win. That's good. It was a division win. You need it with the Ravens and um, who's the other? The Browns are obviously in there, and then who's the other team? Can't think of it. Who else is
Yeah.
in their division? Pittsburgh. There you go. It's
Yeah.
Pittsburgh winning. Got to do
What a
something.
division. Yeah.
So, yeah, they're back in the win column.
Who are we just talking about?
Cincinnati.
So I don't know what to think of Cincinnati this year. Yeah, they've won their last 2 weeks. I think they're 3-4 now. Are they really going to get going? I mean, they won by a score over the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson on
Yeah,
the field. I mean, I feel like if this was Cincinnati of last year, they would have won by 40.
right. It's an odd team. I mean, their defense is kind of putrid. We'll say that.
Hmm.
Um, no real rushing game. You lose Joe Mixon, who just has been blowing up
He's
for
been
Houston.
monstrous. Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't really have a whole lot of words to break them down. They're pretty much relying and living and dying by Chase and Burrow, which helps me for my fantasy team, which is good. Um, but I mean, Nick Chubb came back. That's one positive thing we can say about Cleveland. And you know what? They could actually probably start winning now that Watson's gone. Um, yeah, enough of Cleveland. Done with them. They lost to the Yankees as well, but we'll hit that later. Houston at Green Bay. This should have been a real good game. This should have been a shootout, but CJ Stroud just looked horrible, and I don't know if he just was off, or this is the fact that like Green Bay's defense is that good. And then if that's the case, do they kind of move into that like top three team in the NFC North? I don't know. Um,
Green Bay
yeah,
is a
go ahead.
good team, and we've talked about Jordan Love on here almost every week, at least when he's been healthy. And they found their quarterback. The defense, like you said, is good. This game was this in Green Bay?
Yeah,
So it was in Green Bay, obviously.
warm weather.
You know, yeah, I looked up. I didn't see a ton of that game, admittedly, but you look up the stat line and you're like, C.J. Stroud. I mean,
He
he
got
had
like
like,
6 total fantasy points, and that's with completion points. He was
yeah,
awful.
he did nothing. But it was Joe Mixon had a good game, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
found other ways to score, which for Houston's sake is huge because they've got a good
Yep.
team. But yeah, Green Bay is. Are they getting going? Green Bay too. Last year they got going towards the second half, toward the end of the season. They got going, got into the playoffs, and then I think they won a game or so. But
Yep.
they're a team that gets going at the right time, and our division is just unbelievable. Obviously, Minnesota was just handed their first loss in what a great game that was, and then Detroit. We know how good they are. Are they going to miss anything from Hutch being out? I've heard the rumors that maybe they want to try to get Max Crosby. Does that
Somebody,
happen? And if
somebody
they
save Max. Somebody go out and save Max. That would be so sick. And then like if Hutch comes back and they both keep both of them, that'd be like a Madden team. Let's just jump into that Detroit Minnesota game. Like you said, it was an incredible game. Jared Goff though is just looking elite. And I think we said it last week or 2 weeks ago, just how good he's been. Um, and then Montgomery did get a little banged up, so they relied on Jameer Gibbs, and that guy is like I was gonna say a rocket ship taking off, but I was thinking more like a cannonball, just like zooming through. Um, he's elite.
he's like the Roadrunner
Yeah,
from those
I mean,
cartoons.
hats off to the Vikings though. I mean, their defense. I mean, they gave up a lot of points, but nevertheless, I mean, that both those teams are right now sitting atop the NFC. No one else really is playing that well.
No, I mean, you know what? It's the toughest division in football right now with Detroit,
Yep, hands
Chicago,
down.
Green Bay, and Minnesota. And we have to see how Minnesota rebounds from this. Obviously, it's the first loss of the season, and I mean, heck, they're winning until Bates Motel decides to hit the game winner for Detroit. So
Yeah,
um, Minnesota almost wins that game. If that kick goes a little to the left or a little to the right, they're 6-0 along with Kansas City. Um,
yep,
it's a division that I don't think people would have said would have been the strongest in football, and we'll see. We still have plenty of football left, but with the way the season has gone so far, all those teams look solid. What do you? I think Green Bay is becoming, or not Green Bay. I think Chicago is becoming the biggest question mark now, with Minnesota being as good as they've been. Chicago's got
yeah.
a, as you know, they've got a real tough schedule coming up after this bye week we just had. So it really is interesting. It's going to be a fun end to the season. Hopefully, the Bears can
Yeah,
find a way to win a
we'll
few
break it
games.
down weekly too.
Yeah.
Um, jumping across the into the AFC here, Indianapolis beats Miami. Anthony Richardson just looks terrible, and he's probably going to get the GM fired for drafting him at 4, and he's just been horrible. He's not. It's bad when Joe Flacco looks better at his age and not being able to move than Anthony Richardson, who's supposed to be that guy. Can run, he can dance, he can throw, kick the ball. And nothing against Richardson. I'm rooting for him. It's just that he doesn't put it together, and maybe it's the lack of football in his career that he's played.
Yeah, I know. I know. Last year he got hurt. Was a shoulder injury? Was it his throwing shoulder?
I don't know if it was his throwing shoulder. I would assume so, but he I know he was like because that was when he was rushing for all those touchdowns, hit the goal line and just absolutely got rocked.
Yeah, I mean, you said it though. I mean, last year he looked pretty good before he got hurt. This year he looks worse than an AARP Joe Flacco. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
and
say what you will, and
that's
there's
no
not
good.
really much. Yeah, there's not much more to say about that game. I mean, Tyreek Hill is unusable. Waddle's unusable. Luckily, they did say today Tua is cleared to practice, and he should be playing on Sunday, as far as we know. Good to see that he's alive. He's playing well, or hopefully playing well. Hopefully, because I do have one share of Tyreek Hill that desperately needs a quarterback. Um, but other than that, I don't have anything for the Finns.
Hopefully, Tua still knows his name.
I hope so. Hope so. You know, Taylor Swift put on a better show than the Dolphins have in this whole season down in Miami because that's where her tour is. If you didn't know,
Well, I know. I forgot you are kind of a Swiftie, so you should know that.
I should exactly. Jumping into the next game, kind of the return of not the return of the Jedi, but return of Saquon Barkley. 176 yards rushing, and could have had 3 touchdowns if it wasn't for that stupid tush push.
You know, Philly is one of those teams. Yeah, they're playing the Giants. Danny Dimes over there, all the dimes he likes to drop. But Philly is one of those teams where they're a little up and down. I don't know. We've mentioned Sirianni. They looked obviously great against the Giants this yesterday, but
It is the
yeah,
Giants.
it was the return of Saquon, and 170 yards on the ground, almost 3 TDs, two obviously. I mean,
He only had the one too. He would have had two if it wasn't for that. But he's so good, and I'm glad that I mean I have fantasy stock in him. So obviously I like it a little bit more. But like he was such a highly regarded prospect coming out of college that he went, I think, number two, pretty sure number two overall, um, to the Giants. In his rookie year, he showed why he's so good. He you know dealt with some injuries, dealt with a bad offensive line. Danny Dimes once again, but it's good to see that he didn't just lose it too at his age.
No, he was a beast at Penn State, if my
Yeah,
memory serves me correct. And yeah, you're
yes,
right.
sir.
He's definitely had some injuries, but he still showed like he's still one of the top guys in the league when healthy.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts only 114 yards passing, but when you run the ball as well as you did, you ride it. Next game, jumping. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll stay one more thing. Giants just awful. We'll see how long they stick with Danny Dimes. I mean, that GM's going to get fired for, especially after Hard Knocks, basically choosing, uh, you know, Daniel Jones over Saquon.
Yeah, and the rumor in this last draft was that the Giants were going to take a quarterback, and
Yeah.
you could have taken McCarthy or whoever was there. They decided to take my buddy Malik Neighbors, and now he's stuck on that team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he didn't have a huge game, but he bounced back at least, and he was out there.
Yeah.
Um, Jumping into the next game, afternoon slate was the Rams at Vegas. Aiden O'Connell, the Purdue alum, got hurt, so we got Gardner Minshew back out there. He looks terrible too. He's just, I mean, he was. I think he was always bad. I think it was just Jacksonville's defense at that time was so good. Um, but jumping on the other side, I think we're finally getting Cooper Cup back this week too for Stafford. Thank God, because that just awful watching the Rams play. I do like Kyron Williams though. Once again, another guy I have fantasy stock, and he's been so good. Being
Yeah.
I don't know if he was undrafted or a fifth round rookie last year, 2 years ago. Kind of battled injuries. Did get hurt last year, and just came back this year and still showed that he's that guy. Very small guy too, and a lot of people were saying Blake Corum gonna be the guy, gonna eat away at his touches, and he never did. So good to see Kyron still out there. Cup should be back. Stafford stock will go up. Anything else on that game?
How much longer is Puka out for?
They said he could be designated to return after week 8, but likely week 9, maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, the Rams. All you got to do is try to tread water. Once those two come back, I mean, look out.
Yeah, injuries plagued him all year. Jumping into a high scoring game, we will not spend a whole lot of time on is the Commanders absolutely dominating Carolina. Andy Dalton looked lost out there. He was terrible. Jaden Daniels did get hurt, but injury report came back. Looks like it's not a fracture in his ribs, which is good. But Mariota stepped up, played well. So good to see that Mariota is, keeping that team afloat. Kind of fun to watch, actually.
Now, real quick on this game, I know that Jaden, they said, got hurt. Bears, we played the Commanders this week, I think, in Washington. Is Jaden, are they saying he's probably going to play, or do they think that maybe he'll miss some time? Do we know that yet?
We don't know that yet. I mean, they're saying that he is, he's not out for a long time, but we'll see what that means. They're saying, oh, here we go, 5 minutes ago, breaking news.
Oh,
um, he's hopeful he will play week 8 with the rib injury, which he's going to play. They flex that game to the afternoon slate for a reason, so should be a good game.
yeah, the hype with number one and number two is real. Hopefully, Jaden's healthy enough to play, but obviously, I want to see the Bears win, but should be a
Of
good one
course.
if they both are out there.
Absolutely. Jumping into the Super Bowl rematch, KC versus San Francisco. A lot of injuries in this game. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL, so he's done for some time. No McCaffrey. Debo Samuel said, "Oh, he's got an illness," and then literally plays maybe a couple snaps, and then he puts up a goose egg for those fantasy owners. So Purdy kind of had to put it on his shoulders. He fed George Kittle, which is good, but wasn't enough for Mahomes and company. Mahomes has kind of been just showing why he is the goat of this era right now, and maybe the all time too. Is he goes out and wins. Granted, everybody's afraid to hit him. There was a couple of those, which will probably end up to a rule change next year, where he faked going out of bounds, so the defender said, "Oh, I'm not going to hit him. It's Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to get flagged." went back and ended up like running for like 40 yards ish. Um, the offense isn't really clicking for the Chiefs. I don't know if Kelsey just is finally that father time is kind of hitting them. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
I was going to say the same thing. It's been easily Patrick's most lackluster season. I mean,
Right.
you don't have to just look at the fantasy numbers that he's been putting up. I mean, he's been one of the top couple quarterbacks, if not the top, obviously, fantasy or real life. In the I don't know the last pretty much since he's come into the league, he's been right up there. This year, I don't know where they have him at, but there's more than a few that have been much more productive than he has. So,
Missing
I,
throws too.
yeah, he's been, and to me, I don't know, when I watch him, it seems like he's throwing at a bit of a lower angle than he was. Maybe that's just me. I don't, I'm not saying he's hurt. Maybe he's a little lazy he's just trying to, because he's been, doing the no look throws and he's throwing it sidearm. He could probably throw it with his left hand if he had to. I don't know. But all I know is when I watch the Chiefs, they're a good team, but they're not nearly as dominant as they've been the last, I don't know how many years.
Well, do you know what's crazy to think too is that they're 6-0 currently, and it's their defense that is once again carrying that team, and the offense hasn't been clicking. They're just doing enough to get by, which that's why you have Andy Reid. That's why you have Patrick Mahomes. You ride those guys until the sunset. So, I think there was a cool statistic. It's funny that I'm bringing it up. I don't know it exactly, but like Andy Reid coming off a bye week almost never loses.
That sounds vaguely familiar. You'd have to look that up, Mr.
Yeah, I will.
Statistician.
Yeah. But for the San Francisco 49ers, too, while I looked that up, I think they said CMC's aiming to come back at week 10.
Well, boy, do they need him. And I think, are they 3-4 now?
I think so.
I mean, they're going to have to start winning some games.
Yeah. I mean, that's not going to get any easier. They're basically going to
No.
have to rely on Jacob Cowing and Ricky Pearsall. Like I said, that was a fantasy favorite for me this year. So we'll see. I mean, Ayuk's gone for most of next year, too, realistically, with the torn ACL, but we'll see how bad that is. Um, But back to Andy Reid, he is 21-4 following a bye week, which is a best of all time for NFL history.
It's pretty good. It's
Pretty good.
pretty good.
Yeah, that wraps up football. We got two good games tonight. I love the double headers on Mondays. Hate Thursday games. Love the double headers on Mondays.
Yeah, they just started that. I don't know if that was this year or the last couple of years, right?
It's,
With the
it's
two
all
on
over the
Monday.
place. Yeah, it's all over the place now. It's like it's kind of out of hand, in my opinion. You just have so many. Like I love it because I love football, but it's out of hand.
You want to make some picks for those games tonight, or
Yeah, give me the Bucks in an upset, and then obviously the who are the Cardinals playing? The Chargers.
Chargers? Yeah, in Arizona, I think. Yeah.
All right, give me the Cards. I
I
think
want to
Marvin Harrison.
say I want to say the Cards just because I feel like they got to win a couple more games this year, and they're at
Yeah,
home. I'm gonna take the Chargers though because Herbert's my favorite quarterback in the league, and I was gonna take the Bucks too. I think the Bucks are a good team.
yeah, it'll be a fun matchup. I mean, everything is kind of going their way. So
Baltimore's playing really well though the last few weeks, so
yeah,
that should
nothing
be
against
quite the game.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
I like fuck around with Baker Mayfield, so I like it. All right, let's talk about the World Series. Kind of in my opinion, I'm probably not going to watch a whole lot of it, even though that there's a ton of stars. But this is talking about buying your way to a World Series for both teams. Highest payrolls in sport or in the sport. You got the Yankees versus the Dodgers. They've actually faced off 11 times in history. Did you know
Yeah, I looked that up. This is some of my
that?
homework.
There you go. Yeah, Yankees lead it with 8 wins in the World Series. Played a lot in the 40s and 50s. Most recently in 1981, where the Dodgers pulled it off 4-2 in the series. Um, let's see here. The Yankees 27 rings, bunch of Gabagools, as we like to call them. They've played in 35% of all the World Series, which is like 114. 40 appearances.
It's sickening. And when you mention the 11 times they've met, obviously this will be the 12th meeting. Out of
Yeah.
those 11 times, they met in 40 years between 41 and 81. And I mean, just think about that. I mean, it was basically those two in the World Series almost every single year.
Yeah.
They're big brands. That's why people know them a lot. I'm not super thrilled about it either. I think from a TV sort of point of view, it's probably the best option you could have had. Maybe the Mets and the
Yeah.
Yankees, but obviously, if
Well,
Cleveland or the Mets get in there, maybe you don't have as many people wanting to tune in. But I mean,
TV
for us,
ratings.
we wanted to see. I wanted to see Cleveland get in over the Yankees, and I wanted to see the Mets in. And obviously, the other two got in. Both teams are playing really well right now.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to the starting pitching. I think both teams have a good bullpen. I think both teams have a good offense, and I think honestly, hitter for hitter with these two offenses right now, it's about as even as it gets. I think it comes down to the starting pitching, and when you look at the Dodgers, your top three are Flaherty, Yamamoto, and Bueller. Bueller pitched well his last time out, but hasn't been that
Flaherty.
great.
Yeah, Flaherty's been getting lit up too. I mean, like you said, they kind of reversed roles there. Bueller looked great going. I think he went like 7 innings, didn't he?
He looked great. You'd have to fact check that, but yeah, he looked great his last time out against the Mets. I think. I mean, yeah, Bueller's pretty much a household name. I mean, he's still pretty young, but he's put up some pretty good numbers in his short career so far. Yamamoto, the big $300 million man, he's we'll see what he can do in the World Series. Flaherty, I was a fan of his when he was on St. Louis, and then he had a couple of years where you're like, okay, is this guy done? He can't figure it out, and he had a nice year, bounce back year for him. So good for him. But it comes down to Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, and then the other guys they threw out there, Clark Schmidt, Luis Gill, if he's going out there.
Yeah.
They've That's the difference for me. I think if you look at it, I think I'm picking the Yankees. I don't know if we were going to wait till the end, but that's my pick. I'm taking them not only because I'd rather see them beat the Dodgers, but I'm taking the Yankees. And honestly, the offense is going to be fun to watch for both teams. It's you get the two biggest superstars pretty much with Otani and Judge
Yeah, we
facing
talked
off.
about them before, with who's going to win the home run overall in their career. I mean, you got, like you said, you got Judge and you got Otani, but then you slide it down, you got Mookie Betts, who equally is a top five player in the league. And then you
Yeah,
go across the way, you got Juan Soto, who is a top five, under 25, mind
yeah,
you.
yeah.
He'll probably get a blank check from the Yankees because they will not let him go especially if they win the World Series.
No,
But let's talk about how Giancarlo Stanton just came out of nowhere and just like showed what he can do. And he's just every time he's up, like especially with runners on, I'm like, why are you pitching to this guy?
he said at the beginning of the year, I don't know if it was him or someone on the training staff. They said he tried to slim down or he tried to do something. I don't know if you've seen him in the post.
I saw that headline or I saw the like Instagram post of it and like talking about how he lost a ton of weight, he slimmed down. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and when you look at him, you're like, did he? I mean, the
Yeah.
guy's fucking huge, and
Yeah.
good, glad for him because he's had to battle so many injuries the last I don't know how many years. He just can't stay on the
Yeah.
field, and he just like you said, he is showing just how good he is when he's out there. He's got the most power of. I mean, there are some good players in the league with a ton of power. Aaron Judge is bigger than Stanton, but Stanton, when he hits one, you're like, oh, just get away from me, dude. I would not want to be on the infield having a 110, 120 mile per hour bullet coming at me, dude. I mean, I would run away.
Reminds me of like the home run derby. I think we talked about this when we did that show over the summer too. When like they used to have the kids running around out there and just getting pelted by balls. Like, you know, Stanton just does that to like 400 feet away. I'm like, you
Yeah,
know.
not a good idea to have kids out there when you got guys like him hitting them. But it's yeah, it's probably what Rob Manfred wanted, right? I mean, you got the two biggest brands out
Well,
there.
I heard too because of last year's viewership was like one of the least in years because it was the Diamondbacks versus the Rangers. I mean, I don't know what the Rangers are. In my opinion, they're kind of the second team in Texas. behind the Astros, but like the D-backs, that's a small market, in Arizona. So you kind of look at it, it's like they needed to bounce back and kind of have this uh, in their favor, and they kind of did it too because either way, if the Dodgers lost to the Mets, you had the Subway Series you could kind of bring back. You have a lot of history in that. Um, it's interesting. I'm actually going to take the Dodgers though because I want to see Otani get a ring. Um, I'd like to see Kopech get one too. Rooting for that guy. He's been pitching pretty lights out for them, which is good. Not sore about that at all. Just happy to see these guys, continue success
Yeah.
away from the team.
You know what? Yeah, you got to agree with that. Kopech, obviously, I think we alluded to it. I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago. He's always had the stuff. He just had to
Yeah,
figure it out. And yeah, he looks good in a Dodger uniform. So good for him. It, it, there's a ton of star power too in this. We already mentioned that with Shohei and Judge, Mookie, Freddie,
yeah.
Soto, Stanton. But it's going to be the other guys too. It's not just going to be them. Gleyber Torres has had a pretty solid postseason for the Yankees. You got guys like Kike Hernandez and Teoscar Hernandez for the Dodgers, who,
Teoscar has been awesome too. That grand slam he hit the other day,
yeah,
I don't know what game that was, but like the Mets were like I think they were up pretty significantly too, and then all of a sudden Teoscar comes up and just ties it. I'm like, oh my god! I think that was
yeah,
against their previous matchup. I don't even know if it was against the Mets.
might have been, but it just you look at these lineups, top to bottom, they're both pretty good. Uh,
Yep.
I mean, both teams I think are walking a decent amount. I think the Yankees are walking a ton. It's going to come down to which one of those biggest stars can, I mean, are they going to pitch to Otani? I know you got Mookie and Freddie over there, but Otani, I think he's had a decent postseason too. I know Judge hasn't had like a great postseason, but
Yeah,
most people are saying he's going to come alive in the World Series because you just have to assume he is. But
he hit his like first home run the other day, so we'll see what happens. Should be fun. Start kicks off on Friday. LA is just gonna be a mess because I saw like there's a
yeah,
USC game that night. There is like a bunch of
oh
other events going on the same night, so glad I don't have to drive in it.
yeah, I've heard. I think Chicago has the worst traffic, but LA is like maybe two or three. I don't know.
LA
Is
is
LA
actually
one?
it's
Oh,
worse. Yeah.
well, good riddance.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
Go Yankees.
Oh, did you see the Liberty won their first WNBA title last night?
I thought I saw something about that. Good for Liberty. Good for you guys.
Yeah, it was a controversial call. Pretty much, Brianna Stewart went up for a layup, got the foul, but when they review it, it really didn't look like much of a foul. So, the coach on the other team for Minnesota was pretty pissed off about it after because they lost the game because of it. So,
Hmm. I'll have to go back and look at that. I did see that they won though, so congrats.
yep, there we go. All right. Well, think you'll like us.
Boom.